I'm no historian, but I bet you anything that the Renaissance is possibly the time of our modern history that reflects discovery, curiosity, and an avid thirst for knowledge better than any other, except perhaps this one. But the Renaissance kind of cooler because they went from nothing to wow, there is a world of science to discover. Now imagine that all that science that was being discovered by the geniuses of the likes of Da Vinci and Michelangelo was actually real. Imagine that Da Vinci's contraptions and sketches and drawings and inventions actually worked. Well, that is exactly what Gran Meccanismo is all about. This is a game from Osprey Publishing that describes itself as a clockpunk role-playing in Da Vinci's Florence. Osprey was very kind to send me a copy. I've gone through it, and let me tell you, has this been worth the amount of time that I had to invest in reading it? Welcome to the GMS Magazine RPG review videos. Gran Meccanismo is a game that's been written by Mark Galeotti and illustrated by Teresa Ramos. But also the maps, I have to say that this is very good of Osprey that they are crediting the cartographer as well as the artist is Randy Musso. So what is this book like? Well, let me show you. This is a small A5 size book, hardcover, very well bound. Oops, this is my flight from Germany. Very well bound, full color, beautifully laid out book with loads of illustrations and sketches that really reflect very well what the world that it's presenting looks like, which is great. In this game, we're going to go back in time. We're going to become kind of Da Vinci's wannabes, if you want to, or you're going to be a condottiere or a nobleman in a very politically charged Italy, where plenty of small kingdoms and small lands of controlling areas are competing with each other and for each other's land, power, money, resources, and religion, because the Vatican also has something to say on the matter. Let me show you the book a little bit more in depth. The layout is very simple, with plenty of space for absolutely everything, perhaps a little bit more space needed between paragraphs, but other than that, the book is absolutely delightful and full of very cool illustrations that really bring to life the world itself. And we get things like sketches that very reminisce the style of what Da Vinci was trying to invent and recreate, except that, of course, this time they actually work. They are meant to be fully functioning machines of all sorts, and we have anything from boats to computers, of course, very basic, submarines, and I am looking for one in particular that I found very, very intriguing, and you will find out why in a minute, because you can have automatons. Yes, this means that you can get guard dogs, see, computers, horses that work on hydronetics, and oh my goodness, why can't I never find this sort of, here it is, illustrations exactly where I need it. So you can go very, very creative with this game and pretty much invent anything that you want. It's meant to be fantasy, okay? So the table of content gives us a very complete, apparently, kind of book. Now, they go very much into the world itself. And the world itself is presented with a map of what's becoming Italy in 1510, with a description of all the cities and all the spaces that you're going to be able to go, the main cities, even though most of this stuff is meant to be happening in Florence because this is where Da Vinci is located, but you get an awful lot of emphasis on the politics. There's a brief description of what goes on around the rest of Europe, just in case you want to go around there, but the action is meant to be focused very much on Italy, and we can look further afield, but this is just touching. Florence does receive a fair amount of information in here, which is very good. And we go into the new science. What's the new science? Well, it's literally Da Vinci's conceptions. Now, this is where the book falls for me a tiny little bit short. There isn't enough description of the items that can be invented or how they are invented. There isn't really a breakdown of what hydronetics are or how an automaton works. You know, what's the fuel for it? How is this meant to be created? That per se doesn't have to stop you from being able to create these machines, but it hinders a little bit because it's harder to understand how they are meant to be working. That was kind of necessary, as it would be necessary a list of items that have already been invented, so I don't have to stop and create all of them for me, like tanks or submarines or a boat or a balloon or that sort of thing. They already should be there, and yet I have no detailed lists of how these machines work or what they are, how much they cost if I wanted to buy one, how could I get hold of one. There is no information at all like that. So if you want to create a character that is an inventor, it makes it that tad harder. Now I want to get that out of the way because that is pretty much the only thing that leaves this game down. Again, it doesn't have to stop you from playing the game. The rest is absolutely very, very good, but it lacks that little tiny bit of development that I've been missing throughout the game. Character creation is very simple. You just literally choose from page 85 and it goes to page 116. There isn't really a lot to it than that. Characters are defined by their traits, and a trait is a basic aspect or a more elaborate aspect of the character. It is a description of what your character is good at. It is a relatively abstract description. So silver tongue, for instance, and you have 3 dice in silver tongue, or you have legerdemain, and you can get something Master of Storms, for example. Now, the good thing about that is that you can create any trait you like. But the other thing is that, which is something I do like, I have to say, that you can use those traits what for. So, for instance, if you are Master of Storms and you are a sailor, that means that you could be very well adept at fighting, navigating throughout the storm. But if you are a politician, perhaps you're very good at navigating, the ins and outs of a very heated discussion or a very complicated political ploy that will help you understand what's going on and get an insight as to where you should or could go with whatever it is that is going on. So it offers a great, huge freedom as to how you want to use those traits, and not the same trait has to be used exactly the same by 2 different characters with 2 different professions. Talking about professions, we get a number of them. We get archetypes. Now the archetypes, things like the artificer or the artisan, the artist, the banker, the doctor, the bravo, the farmer, the entertaining, the merchant, the ne'er-do-well, nobleman, noblewoman. Now these, beware, they are differentiated but they are treated equally, and this is something that I was a little bit on the side with this game. How is this going to be addressed? And it actually does it very well. About inclusivity, it does acknowledge that, for instance, Jewish people were under a duress in that time of history, but it also acknowledges that it doesn't mean that it has to be harder for the players to play a Jewish character. It's just something that it's acknowledged that at the time they were their own kind of culture, and that is why it is mentioned. So from that point of view, one has to be careful. Now, the differentiation between the nobleman and the noblewoman that's here, it also makes it very clear that there were social differences, but it gives you all the clues and all the tools that you need to play the men and the women at an equal footing. So men were used to doing so and so, women were meant to be doing, and used to doing so and so, but that doesn't make them unequivalent. They are still equivalent, but also the game makes a spot on, it doesn't have to be played this way. You can play it in whatever way you want to. We just reflect what the time was like, but this is your game. These are your characters. By all means, feel free to change whatever it is you want to change. But the approach they have is actually very, very interesting, and it's not as cringing as I thought it was going to be when I started reading it. So kudos for that. It was very well done. I keep talking about the rules. Well, let me show you, because the rules are actually not particularly difficult. Let me find you. It's after the character creation. And the rules, the characters are going to create a dice pool. This works with d6s. Now, you're going to create your dice pool based on the number of dice of your talent or your traits, plus your abilities, and then whatever modifier you may have. So if you're using an automaton, for example, that can give you a plus to whatever, then you will be adding that. A 6 counts as 2 successes. A 4 and a 5 count as 1 success. 1, 2, and 3 count as no successes. The GM will set up a challenge, a difficulty level, and you will need to get a number of successes in order to achieve the result that you wanted to achieve. It is as simple as that. The game covers combat, opposed, let me show you. It covers combat, how to create a pool of dice, how the weapons work, multi-role challenges, fighting challenges, opposed roles. It covers absolutely everything. Now, some of the explanations can be a little bit convoluted, and I feel unnecessary. For example, setting the difficulty level. Let me find this, which is, I know I should put this something to remember. No role challenges. No role challenges, actually, before I go into the difficulty level, no role challenges are very good, because this table is telling you, if you don't want to roll because it's a very trivial thing, or you're in a rush, or you want to use this for your NPCs, then how many dice do you have? How many successes do you need? If you have enough dice, don't bother rolling, unless this could be some sort of interesting or dramatic outcome to the roll, to the failure. So don't worry too much about this thing. Now, the set of the difficulty. Easy test, difficulty 3. Routine test, difficulty 6. But the thing that I find confusing about this, and I feel is a little bit unnecessary to be honest, is that, for example, difficulty 3, 2 successes needed. Difficulty 6, 4 successes needed. So what happens to difficulty 4 and 5? Do you need how many? The point I find unnecessary is easy test, you could have easily said between 2 and 3 successes. Routine tests, 4 and 5 successes. Challenging tests. But this difficulty bit is kind of adding an extra layer of maths or number that I have to keep in mind that I don't feel I need. So getting rid of this, just don't use it. It's kind of, I personally find them very, very pointless. The explanations are really succinct, which is very good, and there's plenty of advice throughout the book about how to manage the rules and how to manage everything, which is brilliant. Now, again, it doesn't come with enough description as to how mechanisms work, which is a pity, but other than that, you see there isn't really a list of equipment, but it tells you rules about how to create that equipment. So it's not as if, you know, the game leaves you completely in the air about how to do it and how to create the equipment, but it doesn't make it easier for you. I feel that it should have made it a tiny bit easier for you. The other thing that leaves this book down, and I need to tell you this before you decide to buy it, and I think you should decide to buy it, is that it comes without an adventure. It doesn't have an introductory adventure, and for me that is, yes. Again, throughout the book there's plenty of adventure seeds, examples of what you could do, who's disappeared and why have they disappeared, but there is no adventure, there is no example as to the pace or the political intrigue that what one could get up to in this game. So, do I like this game? Absolutely yes. The premise is fantastic. The clock punk sort of atmosphere is wonderful, truly wonderful. If you are a fan of a series like Da Vinci's Demons, or you like steampunk, this is the precursor of steampunk and it works very well. Absolutely love it. I feel the game needs to be a little bit more developed, so you have a little bit of work in your hands if you're going to play this game. Do I feel it's worth it? I reckon so. I think if you are prepared to put that extra bit of work, if you're an experienced GM or writer or creator who just come up with an adventure just like that, this game is certainly for you. Otherwise, for a not particularly experienced player of GM, it may become a little bit harder to get to grips with. With a price of £25, $35, considering the production value of this game, I think it's a fair price. It's not expensive for a full color, 100 and something pages hardback game. Do I recommend it? To some degree, yes. If you're looking for a setting and all the information that you need for the setting, yes, except that list. I know that it needs it, but as an inspiration, Gran Meccanismo really delivers. As a game, still needs a little bit of work that hopefully in future publications will make up for what needs to be in this game. Whether you feel this is going to be enough for you to want to buy it, that's entirely up to you, but I would give this game a chance. If you have already played it, if you have already read it, I would love to hear what you have to say, seriously and genuinely. But until the next time, thank you very, very much indeed for listening, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Take care.